All right. I'd like to call the Steamship Authority IT Steering Committee meeting to order Thursday, August 14th, 2025 at 4 p.m. First, I'd like to inform everyone that Sean Driscoll, the authority's communication director, is making an audio and video recording of today's meeting. If there's anyone else making an audio recording of today's meeting, please identify yourself. If you're joining virtually, please press the raise your hand icon on the Zoom dashboard, or if you're joining by telephone, by pressing *9 on your keypad, and when recognized, please state your name for the record.
I don't have anybody.
All right, thank you.
Steven, you got to leave the Zoom.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Or the room.
Next, statement concerning remote participation. Pursuant to section 20 of chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 as amended, the IT Executive Steering Committee members are participating remotely, or John Cahill is participating remotely, as his attendance would be unreasonably difficult. All IT Executive Steering Committee members in attendance and all members participating in the meeting by Zoom video conferencing app will be clearly audible to each other. As a result of John Cahill's remote participation in this meeting, any and all votes taken by the members today shall be by roll call vote. And the two members of the committee present today are myself, Peter Jeffrey, and John Cahill remotely. All right, next moving to the agenda. Contract status with E-DEA.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, we prepared a project deck, slide deck, and if we can just go right through items 1 through 6 or one on the slide deck.
Sure.
Each one. That works for everyone?
Sure.
Okay.
And John, since it's just you and I, if you have a question, just go ahead and ask it while we're going through the slide deck.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So we can go to the next slide, Sean. So the contract status with the DEA, we got a copy of their contract. We made some edits with our third-party counsel. Along with Terrence Keneally, sent it to them. Their counsel looked at it, sent it to us. Then Terrence sent it to our third-party counsel again for re-review. I believe Terrence has a scheduled meeting with them tomorrow to go over the edits, and then we'll send it back to them. But so far, there's nothing, as far as I'm aware, that's been a showstopper.
Okay, just in terms of that review, are you as the project owner and Steve and then Gibbs being able to be part of this review process at this point, just to make sure that nothing's actually being taken out that we need from a project standpoint?
So preliminary, they're looking at the lawyer information, and then I reached out to Terrence and set a meeting up with the group before we get this finalized.
Okay, great. And then I just make a request that it's possible then, when that's shared with you, if you could just share it blind copied with the members of the IT Executive Steering Committee.
100%, we can do that.
All right.
Who actually signs the contract in the end from the Steamship Authority side?
That'll be the general manager.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what's going on with the contract status, unless there's any other questions. And again, here's just the update for people who were at last month's meeting, where we stand as far as the timeline on the implementation of the reservation system. Right now, we're on reservation system implementation. On the setup analysis, we've had 2 very good meetings with the DEA on the discovery side. The last meeting we had, the first meeting was about organizational information, when the trips run. The last meeting we had was about what the allocations of the vessels are gonna be and what's going on the boats. So what we're doing now is our homework assignment is to allocate the boats with their system methodology and then send it to them, and then they'll look at that. The upcoming meeting on, I believe it's the 28th of August. Will be, the next module will be about integration with the accounting system, not the accounting system, the, accounting part of the E-DEA system, such as cost centers, GL accounts, how does it integrate, pricing, things of that nature. So at that point, we'll have the members of the accounting team joining us, to make sure that they're aware of how the system works and start getting the data to populate the system. So we can go
Peter,
to,
do you have the schedule? The
Uh,
functional and technical schedule, would you like it if you don't?
I believe it was,
yes, it was
it
sent out.
was sent to all the members,
Yes.
somewhere in my outlook.
So if you can go to the next slide, John. So here's the schedule update of all the items that we have that are feeding the reservation system project. So as we mentioned, the last few meetings, it's not just the reservation system, but we have items that are feeding it. So we added new action items compared to last month, where right now for the reservation system, what's new is the contract review. As well as just mentioned, we did 2 meetings with Discovery. The next meeting is on the 26th. And then the E-DEA will be on site for 2 weeks, starting September 29th. So that's where we'll be having, integration vendors on site, meeting with them. So for instance, our accounting system vendors coming up from Florida to make sure that both parties understand what each one's role is. We'll be doing, Mark and his team will be doing site visits to all locations, showing the intricacies of our operations, getting insight from them, how to make improvements. Any questions on that segment?
Just, what is the size of the IDEA team that's coming over to me?
We're not sure yet. So they're gonna have, the first week is the, functionality, and the second week is the technical. So there'll be different people coming for different sessions.
Yeah, we're not sure if they're gonna, the way they got it split over a couple week period, we would think they'd have a technical group. Some various groups that would take advantage.
And so we have work schedule days of specific topics, then we have catch-up days or questionnaires or site visits on the other days. Data migration, so until we know more about the IDEA system and the data warehousing, those are on hold. To find out what data we're bringing over, what format, where we're gonna store it, so those are, on hold at this point.
But just to add to that, we did meet with SaberTech this week, earlier this week, alongside Interest Systems to get a good sense of, to get a level of confidence in what data resides to provide as assistance. It looks like we're, reasonably good shape.
And that's something that we talked about during the focus groups of what data do the customers want to bring over? Is the transactional history important, or is it the vehicles? So if I'm an excursion customer, bringing over my vehicles. So, you know, that was one of the topics we discussed during our public outreach. Accounting system integration, we met with our vendor, they're prepared, they will be on site on October 2nd to meet with the DA in person, as mentioned earlier. And as previously mentioned, we'll be meeting with the DA on the 26th about some of the cost centers to get a handle on how their methodology works, so we can prepare our vendor, so when they show up, to be a more fruitful meeting. Credit cards, we had a very good meeting with the vendor today about maintaining our existing systems while transitioning to the IDEA system into the payment processing. So they will be all set when we come up with a configuration for the payment portal to be working with the DIA on that portion. Business rules and policies, we're in the process of finalizing our initial policy review. And the policies and procedures we've already sent to IDEA, and that's something over each session, we're going over those with them. And then once we're complete, if there's any changes that require board vote, we'll be bringing a red line copy and saying this was the policy and procedure before, this is what we're recommending through either operational efficiency or system change or both, and getting board approval for that.
Is there I think you said you had it on SharePoint, is that where you're keeping?
Yes.
And maybe you have, if you call, if you could give just read-only access to the steering committee members, so we could just take a look at it.
That should have been done maybe a couple months back, so I don't wanna,
Oh, okay.
we'll work together on it.
Like I said, you may have done it and got lost in the shuffle.
Look back in certain emails.
Okay.
If you can't find it, certainly.
Okay.
ask.
That was something Steve and I were actually talking about this morning before the meeting, to make sure that, we have good depository for the documents for you guys.
Great.
Bulk system, that's where we import the freight reservations. Instead of manually producing each transaction, we have an automated process to do that outside of the reservation system. Mark, Allison, and Angela in the process of finalizing the, MVP, minimal viable product, and reassessing, making sure we're not missing anything, and to get that, leg of the project going. They're working with our vendor Interest Systems on that. Website, we met with Interest Systems, and we had a very good meeting this morning about talking about, and Steve will go into this a little more in depth after, about how do we might take the old APIs and calls for the reservation system that we're currently on and replace them with the white label website that E-DEA holds. So we'll be, I'll let Stephen touch base on that after.
Mark, could you go back to the previous slide?
Sean, can you go back?
Across the top where we have the 4 or 5 stars, release winter 2026 reservations and then summer 2026 reservations. Explain that to me.
That's the, when the reservations for our current system going to the current system as far as timetables go. So the summer 2026 reservations, that's Head Start. That go in January. We do the bulks in December, we upload them in late December, early January. Then you make the reservations in January, the Head Start starts, then the general public opening.
Right.
That's just a timetable, each schedule gets released.
But that doesn't do it. This is going to be in the existing reservation system, yes?
Yeah, so all the way, so the first time the new reservations are going to, see the reservations that are gonna see the new system will be the 4th star to the right, the release of winter 2027 reservations. So we'll be booking January through May in the new system come October, November.
Of 2026.
Yep,
So we're not going to go live according to this chart until to the general public until 2027.
correct. So we'll be so we'll be booking reservations live October, November of 2026 for travel in January 2027. Then come roughly January 2027 is when people will see the scanning equipment, the collection of the tickets, going to the terminal and doing the transactions in person in 2027. But we'll be booking, the system will be live in fall of 2026, booking reservations for 2027.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we had a plan in place to start with, like with the High Line in the fall of 2026.
That was something that we were looking at originally, and after discovering conversations with the E-DEA, this is their recommended schedule and what they've had successfully implemented at other applications throughout the world.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, John?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right, so we can go to the one more slide, John. So then, parking lot integrations, because one of the things we're looking at is making reservations at the parking lots. We've received the APIs from our current parking lot vendor, Amano McGann, and we've also received hard quotes on the hardware for upgrading it to a cloud-based parking lot system for the reservations. So that's moving forward. So what would happen is the transactions would occur in the E-DEA system, they'd pass it to through the API to the parking lot, and whether it's a license plate recognition or a barcode, they'd let the vehicle in and out.
Okay.
So if I could ask just, And this is great, the updates on the supporting projects. Have we, just like you did here, kind of mapped out the matrix of the supporting projects? Have we mapped out yet a potential procurement plan in support of these supporting projects, specifically in terms of the hardware, costs, and, what will we need to procure through competition versus state contract, and then also in terms of you developing our budget, and what years are we making these procurements?
That is something we're in the process of working on. That's something that is a special topic for me, both working on the current operating budget, as well as the upcoming capital budget, to your point. So it's not only the cash flow, but it's also depreciation, things of that nature. And strategically prioritizing, if these items are more than where we have, does the parking lot system, for example, go off a year versus, just because of capital expenditure, or do we need to have other types of funding? So right now, we're in the process for each one of these phases of getting the pricing for each one of them. So right now, for instance, Stephen's working on, we did the IT assessment, which Stephen will touch base on in a few minutes. But we're also, now that we've done the IT assessment, now we know what type of hardware that's coming in.
Network assessment.
Network. The network hardware assessment, sorry. So we'll be getting the pricing on those and putting those together, and then we'll give you a comprehensive list once we have it. So myself is very anxious to getting this. A lot of this can be done on the state contract. Some of this is, we'll be able to do some grant funding for as well, that we previously put on the tip. But that's something we are working on.
When do you think you'll have a working draft that is worth sharing with the steering committee? Knowing that the steering committee is also, you're sharing it with the public.
So I will ask Stephen if he can give us a better update on that.
My most optimistic timeline, month out, but
So let's
more
say,
conservative,
so let's just say by December, we should.
oh, no question.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark needs it far in advance of just.
Yes. So I have like estimates on the hardware, which I'm gonna use for the operating budget, for example, on the depreciation schedule, because some of this network hardware will be on the books next year.
I mean, it would be helpful then to lay out, in terms of the way I want to look at it, is a procurement plan that what needs to be procured under each of these supporting projects. What is the actual, what are we actually procuring? What's the estimated cost? How do we think we're going to go about procuring? Are we doing it through a state contract? Are we gonna have to do it through a request for quote or proposal? And then also, where does it fall from a priority standpoint? As you point out, like, I presume that maybe scanners at the terminal will have a much higher priority than implementing the parking.
100%.
So it would be good to put out those priorities, because obviously some of these things are gonna be big asks of the board in approving procurement.
Yes, and it's something as the treasurer, I'm very concerned, I like to know my numbers.
Oh, as well as, and then the other kind of, I guess the line would be, what is the anticipated funding source? Is it gonna be the capital budget? Is it going to be through a grant that you're hopeful to get? So if we could do that.
So we have some of these, we do have grant funds already in place for,
Okay.
such as the, some of the scanning equipment, some of the network hardware, computer that was already in the tip, so we can use some of that money for that. Other items that, once we get the funding, that the process, if we have other available grant money, we can allocate. We just have to make sure it's eligible, but you have to go through the process of putting it on the tip, getting it approved, signing a contract with Mascom, so depending on what the lead time, when do we need the project, then we'll get a more comprehensive plan and how it's gonna be funded. One thing Steve and I talked about yesterday was we're gonna start breaking this slide down to individual ones, where we can get, where does the project stand? Is it on track, both on time and funding? What's the roadblock? What's the lead time? So it'll be more comprehensive than just this.
I think the more we can show a procurement plan, both to the board and to the public of, this is what showing the overall cost, right? So that they understand, where does this fall in? overall in support of this project. Why is it a priority? What's the funding source? The easier it's gonna be to convince the board to approve this.
100% agree with you.
So I would like to add, we are, not to suggest that it won't be costly, the hardware purchases, but I did put in place last year, hardware replacement program, and taking care of a lot of the, desktop computers and things of that nature. We also did the, infrastructure for both shore side and marine side, so we covered a good percentage of that already. There's a lot more to do, but we've definitely taken a good bite out of it.
That's good.
And to add, we did ask IDEA the other day about, when we can get their hardware specs, so we can do that pricing. Their anticipated timeline was October, they moved it to September for us.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And well, and the other thing too is that, as we sort of have priorities and what pot of money is this coming from? It would be helpful too to know, is this an expense? I mean, obviously it's in support of the project, but what are the expenses that would just be there regardless of this project? Like upgrading the network is a requirement regardless of what system we would have, or even if we weren't getting a new system. So.
Okay, so that was the network hardware, and Stephen will touch base on that. I have a few more slides. Also with the computer hardware, where as Stephen just mentioned, we're waiting on the specs, working with the E-DEA on the specs. So as soon as we get that, we'll be putting that in as far as how do we procure it, what the cost is, what's the lead time, do we have any roadblocks with that? And does our current equipment match that, those specs? Scanning equipment, that's something we anticipate to be purchasing new. And as soon as we get the specs, both of the handheld and the hard wires, we'll be looking to go for that. Employee training, that's to be determined, that's down, we gotta build the system first. But we'll be both on a change management side as well as on a software side. And that also goes to the customer training as well, as our policies and our system changes. We have to make sure that the customers are aware of what's going on. We held 3 focus groups meetings, we have a slide later on about that, but we got some very good insight from different groups.
And in the procurement plan, I think it's, when we're talking about not just hardware, but perhaps outside services, I think 2 things we should really look at, both in terms of employee training and then also with the customer comms and training. What level of support are we gonna need when we go live with this system or with SOC? That I don't think we have the resources within our reservation office to also be, the website reservation IT support. So do we need to get a third-party vendor for a period of time when people are running into hopefully not difficulties, but trying to understand the new system?
And
Yeah, you made that abundantly clear last time we nearly launched, so
Yeah.
we anticipate that.
All right,
in part
I'll
of
probably say it again multiple times until it's procured.
And so for using something that's in my wheelhouse right now is the accounting system. So we can't get an SOW from our vendor until we know what type of integration, what it is. So as soon as they meet with the data, then we'll have the better scope saying this is how much it's gonna cost. It could be a simple lift, it might be complicated. We won't know until we get there.
Yeah, there is becoming a kind of a log jam, as it were, the backlog of proposals based on it. We're waiting on idea.
Okay.
But certain things we can tackle, like physical infrastructure, we know we're gonna need, whether it's replacing the cables, whatever we need, Stephen will bring that up.
Okay.
So if there's no other questions on this slide, we can proceed to the next one.
Sure.
So,
Just a really a small nip, but go back to the previous slide. I don't know if it's on prior slides, but you might want to, since this is a public document, change that last blue bar date to not 7/18/2025.
yeah, that's a cut and paste error by me. I missed it last night, sorry.
No worries.
I got it on the one before and I missed it on that one. I was, working on someone's graphics that I missed that one. So this is Stephen.
Yeah, so as far as the, this is actually under the auspices of the network assessment that you brought up last time we met. So that was important that we discuss it. So there, If you don't mind, Sean, go to the next slide, please. So in terms of the physical assessment. You see, we have gauges representing, risk. We thought that was the most, appropriate and immediate way of, having people recognize the risk factor associated with each, physical location. So as you can see, parking lot, findings, we have high risk there. Mashpee Data Center, we also have a high risk there. Terminals, slips and offices. That is, a high risk environment as well. Other than that, Palmer, warehouses, the vessels which have been entirely redone are in exceedingly good shape, other than the monomoy, because we don't have it yet. And the architectural review of the network, which is really the software side of the house, are all in good shape. John, do you have any questions about this? I don't wanna go past this or Peter as well, too quickly if you have questions.
No, I like the updates on these. I think it's a great thing for us just to be aware of, so continue.
Yeah, I mean, none of these findings were a surprise to the IT department. But like you said, it's good to discuss it and, let everybody know, what the risk factors are. Sean, next slide, please.
Can I make one comment before we do, Stephen?
Sure.
As Peter mentioned earlier, I support what he said about making sure that we parse out what was needed for this project for the reservation system, and also what is just needed to upgrade the overall infrastructure for the Steamship Authority. And they are two different initiatives. As we
Yep, absolutely.
spend a lot of money, just want to make sure that we're clear as to some of the benefits that are in each of those camps.
Yeah, I think, I'm gonna well imagine that there'll be some level of internal discussion and or debate about which column each items reside on.
Yep, and we've started that conversation, John, just to make you feel better, is that like, what's a repair going in the operating budget versus which is the capital expenditure?
Great.
Try next slide, please. So next section was the virtual side of the operation and software itself. Not surprising once again to the IT department, because this and infrastructure probably keeps the department the most busy. Application dependency mapping. When we knew it was an issue, but once it got assessed thoroughly through monitoring, we discovered that applications, we already knew they were highly complex. They were written in a manner that really, I think the manner in which they were written and architected was in advance of a well architected network. So they were overcompensating for weaker technologies when first written. It's no longer applicable because the infrastructure is as much work as needed on the infrastructure. It is still architecturally sound. That being said, there are application dependencies that are overly complicated, where many servers are talking to very many other servers, and the applications themselves are doing the same thing. A lot of it's done through ClickOne's Technologies, which is a Microsoft technology, sound technology, but there's a reliance upon infrastructure. A lot of times it fails, so it's one of those environments that keep on giving, as it were, with a variety of ways of failing, keeping the department pretty busy. Switch router configuration, that's a software side of the network, very sound, not too much risk there. The reason it's needed is because without further investment in newer hardware technologies. That remains a medium to high risk, but once the new architecture goes into place, the sound software side of the network goes down to a low risk. So we kind of went conservatively there and put it in the middle of the VMware, no risk there, Azure, no risk there. Any questions? Now I kind of went on a tangent there.
All good.
Okay. Sean, if you would.
Tom, do you wanna take this?
Sure, happy to. So we wanted to give an update on some of the various change management efforts that are happening, but we thought just before we jump into that, it might be helpful to define a little bit better what we mean by change management, just because we found that that's a terminology that a lot of people have heard, but don't necessarily know, what it means. So we thought it'd be helpful to be a little bit more clear what it means in this context. So change management is the planning, developing, leading, evaluating, assessing, and supporting and sustaining a change implementation. And we're highlighting there's 4 major efforts as part of this: stakeholder engagement, the operations redesign that will be part of implementing the new system, informatics and data utilization. So really how information is used to improve the operational design over time. So it's not just static, how we continue to improve quality over time. And then multi-vendor coordination. There's as has already been talked about, there's a lot of vendors involved in this. Some are legacy vendors, some are newer vendors, and so getting everybody moving in the same direction, not just internally with operations, but also with this network of support. And so the under each one of these, there's a number of different efforts. Within stakeholder engagement, so the feedback sessions were based on some of the feedback, looking at creating a user group within the operations redesign. So this is redesign of Mashpee and the how we take reservations, the trucks department that helps manage the shippers, and then, as has been discussed, right, how the workflow works at the terminals, how it works at the ticketing office. All of that with the new system is an opportunity to look at how to make it more efficient, how to make it more customer responsive. And then within the informatics and data utilization, looking at what are the key performance indicators, what's the reporting, how are the reports going to be used, and that really intersects again with operations. What's the information that managers, supervisors use each day? For instance, when loading vessels, how can we get better information to the terminals to help with loading each vessel every day? And again, just making sure that we've got a single plan for all the different vendors that are involved in this now and ongoing in this project. So to go a little deeper with stakeholder engagement on the next slide, if you don't mind advancing. So as part of the public engagement process, we did a series of meetings in a focus group style to gather feedback on some of the current issues and some of the ideas of what can be improved with the new system, gauging opinion and in terms of some of the more innovative technology, things like if we had license plate readers to automate part of the process going into the terminals, what would that look like? What are some of the things that we need to be thinking about as we think about, is that a phase 1? Is that a phase 2, a phase 3 change? So the agenda was similar for these discussions. We did them on the Vineyard, on Nantucket, and then also on the mainland. Looking at again, we did some customization to the different groups, but again, trying to look at the major functions and changes that would be important to each group. The next step to this is now that we've got some feedback, some baseline and again, a thanks to everyone that was part of these sessions, both folks from the Steamship and then also the folks that came externally. The plan is to schedule in the future some town hall style meetings, so open more widely to the public to get their thoughts and feedback, but also share more information on the project. And then we have identified a number of different users to engage as we go forward and we're trying to think through for each one of these, what's the best way to engage them? What are some of the issues that they're going to be wanting to discuss, and what's important to them. So for instance, looking at, okay, what's the experience of, right? One of the major users of the steamship throughout the year are commuters, both commuters with cars and without cars. And so, for instance, how can we engage commuters without cars, and find out, what do they want in the new ticketing system? What do they want the experience to be? What's going to be meaningful in terms of, their own account management, looking at, business owners, both, we're on the mainland and then on the islands. We've had a lot of different discussions around medical transport. So how do we, as we're looking at allocation, how do we make sure that we're, incorporating their needs, of course, the schools, and then there's other island groups such as like event coordinators that are the kind of users of the system that are calling up the reservation office. And so how can we make sure that we're, anticipating their needs, and making sure that, this is again, a customer driven system. Any questions on this?
Not questions, but just some added value. One, when you get to the town hall meetings, do make a note to just not forget to make sure that you pull in Dukes County commissioners to conduct some of these town hall meetings. The appointee is Jim Malkin from Dukes County, and they can help promote them. So I want to make sure that they're given the opportunity to hold as many as you need. And then when you talk about business owners, I'm assuming you're talking about freight customers.
I mean, it's definitely freight customers, but we've also we've heard through other discussions, like hotel owners and
Okay.
and how they're helping their customers.
Yeah. Again,
So, John, you have sorry, this system has a more robust B2B module where giving access to the hotels to be booking things directly per se, and for selling our tickets, where they can go in and book it for their customer directly, looking at those type of avenues.
All right. Going back to the sort of like the bulk process of freight and businesses making multiple reservations throughout the year. Again, now we're down to the application detail level, but I just don't want to forget this thought. If you can make a note of it,
Yeah.
probably aware of it, everyone else on the call, but there are many organizations that remain nameless that are large corporations that make dozens of reservations and never cancel. And how do we stop that? How do we look at it from it going forward in the future? That I'll just make it up. Let's say Hertz, we bring over about 200 cars. At some point we cut off, say, oh, we only need 180. Just making the numbers up. That's 20 spaces that we probably never let the steamship know.
So,
Yeah.
Don't show up.
So if I may, right now, we have a financial incentive to cancel, where unfortunately some of those costs are directly absorbed and passed on as a cost of doing business.
Yeah.
The other one is that if you cancel over a certain percentage of your reservations, you do not get to participate in the bulk system. And that's something we maybe need to look closer and going in the future as a policy change to strengthen that up. That goes back to when we, with the shippers meetings, that was a suggestion by some of the shippers, for lack of a better term, to put more skin in the game.
Right,
So that's something we'll reevaluate during the policies and procedures and the feedback of, how do we stop that from happening? Because it impacts not only the other shippers, but the, as you said, the, people who depend on our service, the island residents and the commuters.
yep, all right, I'm good.
Yeah, and I would add, as has been mentioned before, one of the things that the Steamship really looked for in the new system was enhanced functionality for commercial users. And so the really expanding the self-service capability. And so right now it's, unfortunately, we've made it hard to cancel reservations if you're a shipper, just because it typically ends up being a manual process. And so improving that efficiency. Another piece of it is also looking at, because reservations do cancel, because space is opened up, really looking at, there's a lot of effort going into how to better leverage the new functionality of the system with how standby is being managed, how wait lists are being managed, and do that in a way that is better serving the customers and the utilization.
Yeah, yeah, I don't want to get down to the detail, but you're on it. Thank you.
I would just I'd just like to thank everyone who participated in focus groups from the public, trying to keep this process as transparent as well as many points for public engagement. So thank you to everyone who participated in those focus groups. And then just a comment of, and I know I talked about this when we were talking about the website implementation. If there's a way we can do mini town halls when we have a captive audience on the boats. I mean, those are the customers that we want, who are using, we know they're using our product. They probably have thoughts about how to improve that product. And while they're on the boat, typically they will have some time that they can focus on us rather than when they're about their daily lives off the vessels. So if there's any way we could figure out a way of doing town halls on the boats, obviously on the Nantucket trip on the Eagle, that's easy. There's a lot of time there. Yes. But, within that 45 minutes across the Vineyard Sound, there's a way we can do mini town halls, even if it's just having a virtual survey that they can complete on board, and we advertise that area.
And that's something we've identified in the other meetings as far as the public engagement of the users, how do we, the best way to get a hold of the people using our services on the boats.
Yes.
So we 100% agree with you. And before we go to the next slide, something that Mr. DeWicki brought up in our first or second meeting was the involvement of the marine side. Mark, do you want to talk about the involvement of Paul, the allocations and the systems and how you have the marine side involved in the system?
Yes, we brought in, well, not just Paul, but, with interfacing with our captains, as we're getting into the linear feet calculations with E-DEA, we need, excellent measurements of all the areas of, we've identified high deck areas, which are trucks, low deck areas under the wings and the various ferries. We've got, conversion factors, coefficients that we have to have, which basically give kind of, like for instance, on various boats, like on the freight boats, we have, typically 5 lanes, but when we go to, automobiles, we have 6 lanes, so it's just getting the coefficient factors. So we've had a lot of discussion with our crew on that, how to do that, and good input. So, we've also, with our naval architect, we've done our drawings for each of the vessels. We're in the process of completing that now, so that that'll be able to assist the reservations, and have a good allocations plan so that we have the right numbers. So And I think that'll go far, but good coordination with the marine side on this.
Sorry, I should have mentioned, had that talked about earlier, but I didn't want to,
Yeah, that's
miss
helpful.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So on the next slide, John?
Good.
Yeah, so and then along the lines of on the operations side, so it's been mentioned, a lot of work has been going into the preseason portal to make sure that preseason's process works better, and modernizing the platform, and really looking at, you know, end to end how to improve it. And so testing of that has well, it has started on a technical level, and will continue on a functional level over the next few weeks. And this will eventually be integrated with the system that's being implemented. And then there's also we've kicked off discussions around the website and the approach to that, and the launch to the website, but also at the same time really leveraging what web capability the E-DEA system is going to bring to the table. So some really exciting progress on that, but for future discussion. And then as Steve already went through, right, there's been the infrastructure assessment, and so that's now being used to help inform, in order to, you know, what are infrastructure needs that are critical path to the new reservation system, especially as things like hardware being upgraded. How do we make sure, you know, the wiring, the network are all ready for it? And so as has been mentioned, a big effort's gone into that. And then the last piece is on the next slide.
If I can
Oh, yeah, sorry.
This might be more for you, Steve. In terms of the timeline we have for this project, and I know the website's part of the project, but also a standalone project itself. Is the thought that the website integration for the new website would be launched in the fall of '26, when we start taking reservations for the January 27 moving forward? Or are we going to have just a link through our current website to the new reservation system, and we're doing a launch of the new website when the entire system goes live in January 27? Or have we even, or are we just in conversation?
Did you have offices, Bob?
Yeah,
We said like that,
this is a well-timed conversation. It's as though you were in our previous meeting today.
Yes.
So, up until today,
Mhm.
thought we were targeting March of 2026. As a consequence of more thorough examination, we decided that we will postpone the launch until January 2027, coinciding with the launch of the requirements.
So from a functionality standpoint, we'll have the same website, but it'll redirect then to the E-DEA reservation system rather than our legacy system. That's
Yes.
Yeah, so November, December of 2026, when you're booking 2027 reservations, it'll be a link. And then when January 2027 comes over, because that, you have to have the travel information for the same day and all that, instead of mingling APIs, and then it's a clean cut over at that point.
Okay,
And then that's part of
that
the.
makes sense.
But to be honest with you, it took many conversations that went in many different directions to get there. Maybe we should have invited you into the conversation.
And then I guess just making sure, like on the procurement plan, it seems to me that if we're running two parallel systems for that 90-day period, for the, guess how we run our fiscal, for that quarter, that may be the time that we need that additional tech support from a reservation. I mean, public isn't gonna look at it as tech support, they're gonna look at it as support, but that seems something that would fall more to an external tech support than to calling someone to the reservation desk and using their time to go through the back end of the system, when it probably could just use, you know, a call center assisting them to actually go to the right website on the customer facing stuff.
And so, do you wanna mention the procurement part of that? Or you want me to take that?
With the,
With the,
I'm not sure where you're going, so I'll let you take it.
So one of the things, so from a procurement standpoint, we got a, SOW from InterSystems as far as going through the existing website and looking at what APIs have to be pulled out, where the white page gotta go in as exploratory, and that was, how much was that, Steve?
Approximately 65.
65,000 to an assessment of where everything has to move, and then how do we make the website look nice, we're pulling certain things out and putting certain things in. So that's under the threshold for a contract before that'll be determined for procurement through, state contract. And then, one thing through the public focus groups is, you know, does it make sense to maintain the old website, for example, and not bring all the transactions in and just have the link on the new one to the old account information and pull it that way? Or do you bring all the data over? So we're looking at, you know, what is the most cost effective as well as best way for our customers, you know, to handle that. And then Stephen, on the Wi-Fi assessment, you wanna talk about that?
Yeah, so as a consequence of the network assessment, we realized, on the periphery or security cameras, we've already got a proposal for that, we've already moved on that, that actually starts, next week. In addition to that is the Wi-Fi itself. As we discussed many times over, we're going to a handheld environment for scanning. And as such, we'll probably find ourselves in pockets of areas where coverage lacks today significantly. So we're bringing in high-profile Wi-Fi experts to thoroughly examine each and every terminal from each and every quadrant of it, and map it out, and then working with getting hardware recommendations from IDEA. We'll build out a plan, so we have sufficient Wi-Fi coverage to handle the in-house computer.
And that'll be state contract as well.
Yep, and I think that the exact number, it's not an exact number, but I think it hovers around $87,000.
And that was a pain point before with the handheld scanners, is the Wi-Fi coverage, so this is a very important project. And Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, that the public will also benefit from this Wi-Fi for public use, just not internal network, is that correct?
Yes, but I think more importantly, we're actually, because of the new terminal building and, that it sits in the middle and it's concrete, we're already experiencing.
Oh, I know, I was there the
Oh, really?
other day.
Yeah, so this.
Addressing radio issues too.
Yep, so this is well timed, we wanna get started with this one as quickly as possible, so we can get a, because there. I think you said earlier, there's a significant, number of projects associated with this one project. And we wanna get all the assessments out of the way early, so we can start digging into the work itself.
And as we have more people relying on mobile products to use, we wanna make sure they have coverage, whether it's a change of reservation, pull their ticket up, whatever it may be. So we don't want any dead spots, both for our internal use, for scanning tickets, but for them to get their ticket available. Right.
Yeah, I apologize, I don't think it's sufficient to answer your question, yes, the customers themselves.
Or someone waiting
Definitely.
in standby to what the updates on traffic is, whatever, maybe, you know, or for the next vote, if there's any delays, so they can get that information promptly. Okay. Any questions on that?
No,
All right, next slide, please.
All right. Yeah, and I feel like I should add, so we're clearly very excited about the most recent website plan, but it should probably have like, that conversation should have draft on it, because we feel really good about like the plan as it stands right now. And think it's gonna be, you know, the best both technically and for customers. but we're gonna, prove that out with the vendor as we go forward. So the last piece, just as a reminder, there's a whole set of committees. There's a whole structure within the Steamship that is, part of this project and helping guide and lead this project and putting a lot of effort into this project across, across a lot of different departments. So there's an internal working group that continues to meet on a weekly basis, and then the sub teams working on the technical approach, the customer experience, the commercial experience, and the accounting. All of those teams continue to meet, at different frequencies, and have continued to meet also now to meet the expectations set by the vendor E-DEA as they've laid out the timeline for configuration of the system. So just an update and a reminder and a thanks to all the work that's happening internally.
Question. How much is the E-DEA engaged in this whole change management process?
Well, so E-DEA is, they're really, we're leaning on them as subject matter experts, and then going to be asking them, as we go forward, where do they have guidance, specifically related to their system. But the structure and process is really something that's happening locally.
I would just think that maybe they don't have to be involved the whole time, but I would think with their experience, they could really lend their expertise to say, in our last 5 or 6 implementations, here's where we saw the quick wins. Here's where we saw tremendous improvements by doing X, Y, or Z. It'd be interesting to see if they could come up with some level of communications back to you guys, mainly you, give us, to say, here's what you ought to be thinking of well in advance. Coming from their experience.
Oh yeah, definitely. We plan to use them as a deep well of experience, and have already started to seek out their guidance on things such as the as was mentioned before, the how do we move to a linear foot basis? How do we make sure that we've set up, we're configuring the system with the vessels, and so we're leaning on them. Okay, well, how did you do it in Scotland? They've got a lot of different vessels. So how did you approach it? And really engaging with them as a partner in that process. And so far it's working.
Just sort of building on that thought is not just with the data, but just within ourselves, our own working groups here, is as you start down this path, it might be good to document those areas that you're focused in on that could provide immediate returns. So let's call them quick wins, quick hits, that has high dollar value. But we don't want to miss that. Maybe it's a list of the top dozen changes that we want to make with the highest impact. And start to share that information first with us, but also then the general public. See what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
This is powerful, and I just think that we don't want to miss the opportunity to communicate that.
Yeah, so we will definitely be asking them about it, and engaging with them, and definitely in terms of dollar value, we're already putting some thought into how to leverage the system. What are some of the opportunities that this system provides that the legacy system either didn't have or didn't work as well? Things like where can we use pricing to help motivate behavior, and so just thinking through how do we do that, the leveraging the system, and then what that really looks like to again improve the overall experience.
Thank you.
And I believe that's all the slides we have on the slide deck, so, any questions on the slide deck from the members?
Good job.
Yeah. Does this format work? Just to go through and update, this format, or you guys prefer a different format?
No, I think this works for the majority of meetings. I mean, I think there's sometimes that there'll be less questions and more comments, like when we see the draft procurement plan. And that probably should be a standalone
Yep.
meeting, so. Are we ready to move? John, are you ready to move to public comment?
Yep.
Alright, is there anyone who would like to make a public comment who's online? And Sean, are you still with us?
Yep, I am. I
Alright.
don't see anybody. Yep, no one has their
Uh-huh.
hands up.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn then?
So moved.
I guess I'll second it, and then we'll do a roll call vote.
John Cahill, yes.
All right, Jeffrey, we are adjourned at 5:01. Thank you all.
Everybody, nice job.